If everything stays as it is today, because we can talk about that, there's a lot of price parameters and there's a lot of things that could happen with the block pricing. We'll
Yep.
probably see roughly on the order of 10x cost reduction from here on Monday. But again,
I
there's a
just want
lot.
to highlight, I want to highlight that too because, we had someone else talking about this yesterday, and it's like, it's so easy to gloss over how big that is, a 10x cost reduction. Welcome, everybody, into another show here from Coinage, the only community-owned Web3 media outlet backed by the co-founder of Netflix and other huge builders in the Web3 space. I'm the host of Coinage, Zach Guzman, coming to you live from our Brooklyn studios here in New York City. And huge buzz still going on in the Ethereum world, in the wider crypto world, as Dencun sprinkles through every other layer too, and fees come way, way down. Excited to be chatting with one of the biggest builders in the Ethereum ecosystem about what this all means, what it's going to change, what's happening. We got the co-founder of Offchain Labs back with us here, Steven Goldfeder, of course, core contributor to Arbitrum's budding ecosystem. And Steven, it's good to be chatting with you again today, man.
Hey, great to be here again. Thanks for having me.
I say budding ecosystem, but really it's a huge ecosystem now in terms of what you guys have been able to grow at Arbitrum. And I'm curious.
Compared to where it's going to go.
So yeah, it is. And the growth has been pretty fascinating to watch. And now I think everyone right now is trying to figure out what Dencun changes to these things. So maybe we just start there. What you make of this upgrade, what you're telling people about how important it is.
Yeah, I think it's a very, very important upgrade. So let me talk about it generally, then I'll talk about it specifically in the case of Arbitrum. But it's an important upgrade for a few reasons. Number one, in the Ethereum roadmap, it's a big step and one of a series of upgrades that eventually will continue to lower data cost posting in a sustainable way over time. But it's a very big step just to see the whole Ethereum community align and say, hey, we're going to make this big change on layer one for rollups, because that's what's going on here, right? This is like a massive moment. I think the first really time that has happened that like rollups have taken the main stage on Ethereum layer one, and we're actually aligning layer one development for rollups. So that itself, even forgetting about the reductions, is a very, very big moment. And we at Offchain Labs, we're talking about Arbitrum today, but we actually played a role on the layer one side as well. So we built Prism, which is the leading Ethereum consensus client. And, we, for example, were the first ones to build a prototype 4844 early on from like an early draft spec, and, really helped answer a lot of the questions and develop a lot of the understanding of the system. So we've been like knee deep in this from the layer one side, as well as the layer two side here at Offchain Labs. And it's a very, very big moment for Ethereum. And of course, the thing that people are really seeing and feeling right now is reduced fees across the ecosystem. I'm happy to talk about Arbitrum specifically. Arbitrum, the fees have begun to go down, but it won't be until Monday until they really go down all the way.
Yeah, I think I was looking at your tweet earlier today around kind of the phased rollout of what this will look like. And obviously, everyone's super stoked to see fees come down. If you've ever used Ethereum, had to pay a bunch of gas as the price of Ethereum surged in all of this excitement. And I'm curious to kind of just get your take on kind of the phased rollout, how Arbitrum's maybe looking at this upgrade versus, say, Base, Optimism, or any of the other layer twos you've seen.
Yeah, so there's a fundamental difference between Arbitrum and I think most of the other layer twos that are around today, in which because it's DAO governed, there is no instant upgradability on the chain. And so that first upgrade actually went into effect a month ago in the DAO process, and it takes a month for it to get live on chain. And that's what happened this morning, literally. It's this month-long process. And the second upgrade was actually went through a snapshot vote and a non-emergency security council action, but also has a 13-day delay. So, it's the key difference is like, yeah, if I had a key to the chain, we did this work months ago. We could just turn it on in a moment of, but with the DAO planning, you have to sort of align different timelines exactly. And the second one was actually an oversight in the first one, but by the time they realized the oversight, there was just because the DAO has 13-day minimum window, even for a security council vote, that's what basically the idea is, that the DAO has these built-in slow processes, which is actually nice, right? So no one can like quickly do something to the chain for better or for worse. But I think it's actually a really strong point. So to the tweet, the first thing happened today. So at roughly 9:46 a.m. this morning Eastern time, that first process ended, and that upgrade was executable on chain. And over the course of the past, 2 hours or so, that's happened. And Arbitrum 1 is now using blobs. So that's really exciting. And then there's a second set of fee adjustments that adjust to that. So different fee parameters need to be upgraded on chain to adjust to the new reality, to the new data costs, and
Hmm.
those will go live Monday. So we saw initially some reduction today, but we'll see probably, don't quote me on this, but roughly on the order, my guess is if everything stays as it is today, because we can talk about that, there's a lot of price parameters and there's a lot of things that could happen with the block pricing. We'll
Yep.
probably see roughly on the order of 10x cost reduction from here on Monday. But again,
I
there's a
just want
lot.
to highlight, yeah. I want to highlight that too because yeah, we had someone else talking about this yesterday, and it's like it's so easy to gloss over how big that is. A 10x cost production. I feel like there's doubling down. Let's highlight that a little bit because I was looking at this grow the pie chart showing all the fees coming down. The Arbitrum timeline as you laid out there. We'll look ahead to Monday for 10x in reduction in fees. But I mean, how huge is that? Like, what does that start to unlock when you kind of like take the technical hat off and you say, all right, what becomes possible on chain when you talk about a 10x reduction in fees? Like, what does that mean to you, Steven?
So if a 10x reduction on fees is sustained, I think a ton of things become possible. I think though, what the other thing that happens is there's just there's more demand at that price level, and then there actually may the chains will fill up. There may be more congestion. So I think there's a lot of talk about this. We don't know what the sort of equilibrium pricing will be, right? There will be more demand for blobs based. There will be a fee market for them. The cost of blobs will likely rise somewhat from here. So I don't know that we'll stay at the like really really low levels that like we're seeing blob data today. But even so, I mean, um, Ethereum scaling, reducing costs makes so much more possible on chain. Data costs are the dominant part, or have historically been the dominant part of the fees for rollups, and reducing
Mm-hmm.
that means that you can do more on chain in the same space for cheaper and really it's all about different price points and applications. So, for example, we can think about new applications that become possible on chain, particularly applications that may be data intensive, that now
Right.
become more feasible on chain. But even you could think of existing applications at different price points, right? The simplest application is think you have a DEX trade. If a DEX
Mm-hmm.
trade was initially $1 and now it goes down to a penny, and I'm just making these numbers up, but just for source of illustration, that means that a lot more people around the world, even though like there's nothing fundamentally different, it's still a DEX trade, it's still the same code, but you've changed the price point where it makes sense, right? So someone that just has $1 or two to trade, they couldn't do that before because their trade would just get eaten by the fee, but now they can,
Yeah.
right? So you just make it more accessible and more open to different people in different situations and different use cases, even for the same fundamental mechanisms. But also
How
you can
does
think,
that
yeah.
how does that 10x kind of drop off compare? Because we are looking at transaction costs on base now, drop down considerably. Zora, I think their transactions below a fraction of a penny. I mean, what are you expecting? Put the 10x into context for us in terms of how Arbitrum's looking at maybe what's to come.
I think they'll probably, if the prices of blobs stay where they are today, I think the fees come Monday would probably be in the similar territory to those.
Hmm.
Not necessarily exactly the same, but roughly in the similar territory. That being said, and then we as an ecosystem may see those rise a bit from there. That would be my guess. As more usage for blobs comes online, as the fee market really begins to develop, we'll probably see the cost rise a little bit. But I would
Hmm.
imagine that Arbitrum will be competitive with the lowest ones you see today. The prices for everyone may rise, and Arbitrum will rise and will raise and lower with those. But I think they'll be competitive with the cheapest rollups that we're seeing today.
Yeah, you and I were just talking about ETH Denver and us both being out there and kind of, I guess right now there's a lot of excitement among all the L2s because costs, as we just said, are coming down across the board. But there was, I guess, a little competition hanging in the air, maybe a little bit. As you guys came off the stage, it was also me going on with the Optimism Superchain crew. It was all friendly though. You were chatting with Jesse, I was chatting with Jesse. It's all friendly for the most part. But I think it's kind of an interesting chapter. Like, how do you look at the L2 battle competition going on now? Is it's more kind of, I guess, what use cases you guys are bringing on chain? Like, how do you look at kind of this next evolution of what L2s can unlock?
Absolutely. Yeah, it is, it's a lot of competition, but mostly friendly. And I think the best way that you can see that is in things that benefit everyone, like EIP 4844. This going live was a multi-team effort. Like I said, we contributed on both the L1 side and the L2 side. Other teams contributed, and it was really a joint effort. And I think everyone working together, even we can compete, saying, "Hey, but we have like shared interests, and we can align on those." That's like one of the beautiful things. I always say, like, you have a panel like that we had in Denver with a bunch of different roll-ups, and we're all like quote unquote fighting each other. But you put a Solana person on the stage and like an Avalanche, and then we're all friends, and then we're, you know what I mean. So it's everything's relative. Um, but yeah, I think that we're going to continue to see again more collaboration among the layer two teams to do things that benefit everyone, and also like you said, more differentiation. So in particular in the Arbitrum ecosystem, we're seeing a ton of traction in DeFi. That's historically been the Arbitrum One stronghold, and that
Hmm.
hasn't gone anywhere. That's actually intensifying. But actually, even in gaming today, Arbitrum is leading the show with a ton of interesting. Since I've been here last, a ton of new gaming networks coming online. So there's Zai, there's the Ape Chain, Ape Coins DAO's chain is going on Arbitrum. There's Treasure Chain announced on Arbitrum. There's Itopia. I can go on and on and on. There's Mustard. And these are all
Well,
ecosystem
yeah.
ecosystems.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's the big, I guess, scaling factor there too. Is that like you're building on top of the Ethereum ecosystem? There was just ETH Denver. Everyone was on the ground. Everyone saw the excitement and the actual community. And now, I guess a fair question of asking about that, Stephen, is kind of what these fee reductions do to maybe some of the other chains. I believe you were on with us last time, going head to head with Algorand in a little nice little heated competition or a debate around why build in one ecosystem versus the other. And I wonder what your take is in terms of what Dencun does to maybe, say, the Solanas of the world. A very simple question is, does the Dencun upgrade maybe clap Solana down? Is Solana now on its heels a bit?
yeah, I think it definitely. So there's always been the understanding, at least from my vantage point, that Ethereum has a premium, and there's a reason for that premium. You're paying for better security, and there's a need for a reason for that. And the layer twos help you get that security, obviously, and also at a better price point. And when you look at and but even those are historically been at a premium towards Solana because you're getting something. You're part of the Ethereum ecosystem. You're getting Ethereum security. I think we're going to definitely lower that, lessen that gap, and therefore it's going to become easier and easier for people to say, okay, Ethereum security, Ethereum's ecosystem is worth it for me to do that. If the current levels sustain, then sure, then it will be really really easy because they'll be the same prices. I don't expect that to happen personally. I think that Ethereum and even the roll-ups using data on Ethereum like Arbitrum One will have a premium towards to Solana, and I think for many teams, perhaps most teams, that will be a premium that's worth paying. I think the
Yeah.
delta will be much smaller, so it'll be a much easier case to pay that premium than previously, even though there was a good case previously. But like my expectation is that we land somewhere still higher than Solana, but much closer than we were before.
Well, let's talk about kind of, I guess, what it enables now, because obviously meme coin mania did push Solana DeFi volumes above Ethereum for the first time not too long ago. And I feel like Arbitrum's kind of pretty focused, I think it might be fair to say, in terms of enabling trading in a cheaper way in the Ethereum ecosystem. And when you kind of look at maybe what's to come here, is I wonder if these fees coming down might trigger a new DeFi or meme coin wave in the L2 ecosystem. I mean, how do you kind of see, as you talked about, fees coming down, maybe potentially setting that up to happen?
Yeah, there's no question about it that volume is correlated to fees, right? So when you're looking at like Arbitrum and Ethereum volume, you're saying, okay, what are people paying? What are the fees that they're paying to transact that volume? And you look at Solana, and like they're paying much lower fees for the same volume. That you say, okay, like I said before, if the volume is lower, it unlocks new users, new trades, lower trades, the volume will likely go up. So I do think we'll see increased activity because there'll be more users that are priced in. But eventually, you'll find some equilibrium because many more users will price in, but the networks still only have a fixed capacity, right? Because you can't do infinite computation on these networks. So at some point, that will kick in, and the prices will rise because of sort of competition or congestion or contention on the network. And I think that's what we'll see. But I do expect there to be more users priced in now, more trades that make sense for users to do, and therefore I do expect this to lead to more activity on the chain, more volume on the chain, and I do expect Arbitrum and Ethereum to continue to lead the way there. But yeah, I think that for sure this is going to unlock more activity.
Well, at ETH Denver, you guys had a huge announcement with what you guys are building with Robinhood, which I feel like is a perfect way to take this from being a very kind of like meta thing we're talking about to putting it real time in practice. Because, enabling swaps with Robinhood users seems to me to be a huge unlock for what you guys are doing at Arbitrum and kind of onloading a huge existing user base. Talk to me about why that's so important and maybe what the fees coming down could enable when it comes to maybe preventing if FTX had cheaper fees, maybe they could have done everything on chain. Everyone could have seen exactly where these trades were happening or what was going on. I mean, how do you see that maybe playing out with this Robinhood partnership now live?
Yeah, super excited about the Arbitrum partnership with Robinhood, and the key here is to give accessibility to more users. Robinhood obviously has a massive user base, and now any token at Arbitrum you can go ahead and trade in the Robinhood crypto app, and I think that's a massive unlock. And it has a few different facets to break down. Number one, I mentioned gaming and DeFi before, but the third pillar I would say of the Arbitrum ecosystem is mass market and institutional adoption. And we're seeing this with like funds and like that side of institutional and investor products, but also with consumer facing products like Robinhood. And the idea that, the big thing holding back this technology today, in my opinion, is it's not the scalability anymore. If you were talking 5 years ago, I would have said, scalability is the biggest problem. Today, I think it's the UX and just bringing it to users and making it accessible for users. So finding ways to partner with the Robinhoods of the world and taking and making Arbitrum trades accessible to Robinhood users is a massive unlock because there are so many people that want to participate, but don't know how. Can't figure it out. They don't know how to set up their wallet or the like, and there's still a ways to go, but this is a big unlock towards that and towards making this technology accessible to mass users. So both from a big pillar of Arbitrum when it comes to institutional adoption, this is a big win. But also the main goal is just to reach more users, to allow more users to get the benefits of Arbitrum, to get the benefits of Ethereum, and that's something which Robinhood announcement is a big unlock. And I'm super excited for where it is today, and I'm super excited for the possibilities of where this can go deeper and how these ties can strengthen.
I think it's a fair question too, and I was looking at a meme you tweeted recently around maybe potentially what partnerships like these might do. Because right now, one of the main questions I feel like a lot of people have is, all right, if we have all these L2s, how is this going to work when we've got all these kind of different ways to scale Ethereum? Where's that value going to go? I saw this meme and I thought it was kind of funny because it's like, okay, if we're bringing more people into the Ethereum ecosystem with partnerships like these because fees are cheaper, then yes, I could see it playing out in a good positive way for Ethereum because more demand equals number go up in that sense. How do you compare, I guess, where Ethereum is right now with all the craze and excitement around what the Bitcoin ETFs are doing to kind of maybe have Bitcoin be top of mind?
So that meme was kind of funny because I had a few of my teammates reach out to me and say like Dad, stop. Like you don't know what that meme means. You used it wrong. I'm like, no, I know what the meme is typically used, but I thought it was funny. It's all good. um, but what I meant by this was, and to answer your question, there's an initial type of user that doesn't really understand much. They just like get excited and buy something, but they don't really understand much of the technology, what it uses. And then there are users that start to understand more and more and more. And I think that for me at least, and I actually went along this path myself, right? So when I started, there was only Bitcoin. When I started looking into the space, and when Ethereum first came out, I was probably a bit skeptical and like really like is this interesting? Why can't we just do this on Bitcoin? There was obviously politics that I didn't fully understand back then in 2015. But the idea is that I think when you really look at what is the potential of smart contract technology, what is the potential of blockchain technology beyond being an asset, beyond being a store of value, you land on Ethereum, right? You land on the smart contracts of Ethereum, the programmability of Ethereum, the decentralization of Ethereum, the censorship resistance of Ethereum. All of these, point you to Ethereum. And for me, at least, in my journey in the space, and I think this is true for many users that really engage, the power and the unlock of the space happens in Ethereum. And that's why we're building Arbitrum to really try to, we're contributing to Arbitrum to try to make this accessible for more and more and
Mm-hmm.
more users at their price point with great usability. But ultimately, that's the user journey that I see. So I think Bitcoin's great. I think users are going to get excited, but then they're going to say, okay, so I bought this Bitcoin, but now what else? Like, what are the real world use cases? What does this unlock?
Yeah.
And I think that's all roads lead to Ethereum there. from what I can see. And actually, we're seeing this on Bitcoin too, right? There's this massive movement, which you probably, I'm sure, are familiar with L2s on Bitcoin and sort of
Yeah, I was
smart.
going to ask you about that. I was going to ask you about that because it's one of the things. Shout out to our head writer Andre Bagansky for his story, looking at the frat house. There was a whole team of ordinals builders that descended on ETH Denver and had a little party out there talking about everything they're building on Bitcoin. You mentioned kind of the layer twos. We had the team at Stacks come on here to talk about that. I mean, we had someone from Pantera yesterday say that because of all the money, it's not actually working the same way as before. Because if you can buy Bitcoin via these ETFs, you probably just do that and you stay there. Whereas before, you would have had to buy it, you would have figured out what a wallet was. Maybe then you go into Ethereum and you see that happening. So, I mean, I guess my question to you, Steven, would be, with all the excitement now in terms of building on Bitcoin, what does Dencun maybe do to keep Ethereum, I don't want to say at pace, but maybe how does Dencun change this battle between building on Bitcoin versus building on Ethereum?
Yeah, I mean, to me, like, building on Bitcoin, that's something I've always been interested in. But I think to really get something like an Ethereum rollup on Bitcoin, you need to make changes at the smart contract layer, at the fundamental blockchain level, right? Ethereum, because it has smart contracts, can fully validate its rollup, and that's something which, I think Bitcoin still has ways to go, and I don't know that those changes would ever be made in Bitcoin. So, I'm much more in favor of the Ethereum rollup security model than I am in Bitcoin. But I think it speaks to some of the excitement. So, from my perspective, this is like the other way around. Like I think Ethereum is continuing to do what it's doing. It's continuing to innovate. It's continuing to remain price, efficient, and to, particularly with Dencun upgrade, to make sure that it has a price point that just works for just about every application. And I think it's the Bitcoin crowd that's seeing this and becoming more excited on this vision and saying, "Hey, how do we get that thing? How do we do that?" And I'm a big fan of that. I think that there are certain issues in this security model that would need to be solved in the fundamental layer. So you sort of have to have the Bitcoin community to come around and really, really embrace this in a way that I don't think we've seen yet. Maybe that will happen. Maybe it won't. But from my perspective, this is Bitcoin chasing Ethereum, and this, something the Dencun upgrade just makes Ethereum all the more relevant and important in this space. But I think Ethereum is certainly the leader here, and all this excitement in Bitcoin rollups and smart contracts, I think, is indicative of the
Yeah.
success and the importance of this.
I know we got to let you go soon because you got to run, but there was one last question we had for you in looking at active addresses on Arbitrum and kind of what's to come around, what this enables and maybe what you guys got cooking there with all these things working on Arbitrum. Talk to me about what you've seen in terms of the community size and what has you excited moving forward.
Yeah, there's definitely a ton of activity in Arbitrum today. The things that, again, the three pillars that super excite me from an ecosystem perspective are a continued dominance in DeFi. Gaming is literally up and coming and exploding on Arbitrum, and excited to see that happen. And it's like, Arbitrum has become the de facto home of gaming in the Ethereum ecosystem, and we're seeing that from many, many different. It's become an ecosystem of ecosystem with all these game publishers setting up orbit chains because they understand the technology is just better and works and it's fast and it just gives
Hmm.
you what you want for gaming. And the third one is institutional adoption, like Robinhood, like Franklin Templeton, and like others that will, that I'm aware of that will be coming into the ecosystem soon. And then from a technology perspective, right? So that's the ecosystem and balancing that with the technology. The thing I'm probably most excited about are Arbitrum Bold, which opens up validation to everyone, and Arbitrum Stylus, which just gives developers a massive unlock and says, hey, use all your typical programming languages on Arbitrum with fraud proofs in a way that works today, just works out of the box. And I think those are going to be massive unlocks because, again, and to tie those together, when
Hmm.
we try to like zoom out and really, expand the pie, we have to start with developers, right? I always like to say we get the first million developers, and that's the unlock to get the billion users.
Yeah.
And when you look at the number of developers out there, they're estimated to be maybe a few tens of thousands Solidity developers, 3 million Rust developers, 12 million C developers out there. And we say, hey, we're trying to to really get the Robin, get the institutional players in the world. We have
Yeah.
to bend our technology to them, not ask them to bend to us. And when we're zoomed in, it's hard to see that. It's like, no, everyone's exposed to it. You zoom out and actually talk to these people, it becomes very, very apparent that this is going to be a massive unlock. So I'm excited for the tech and the ecosystem building to basically work together to make the technology more accessible to all and really push the limits of what we can do here.
Well, exciting to see it all play out in real time, and we'll be watching for Monday when we see a potential 10x in fee reduction on Arbitrum. But appreciate you coming back on Coinage to chat with us today. Steven Goldfeder, the co-founder at Offchain Labs, there chatting all things Arbitrum. You got to come back, man. Thank you again for the time.
Love to be here. Thank you so much for having me, and definitely.
All right, right on. Appreciate the time. Congrats again as we continue to track all the big Dencun upgrades. You can catch all the headlines per usual at coinage.media. Appreciate you guys joining us again. For Steven, for everybody here at Coinage, I'm Zach Guzman saying adios.